So what's going on? What's going on, man? Woo! I'm telling you, fellas, what's happening out there?
Not a whole lot. It's good to see
Yeah.
you, brothers.
Likewise, likewise, man. I'm telling you, this must gonna be one of those discussions that's gonna be off the chain because I'm telling you, the technical issues that we've had is just ah. I hate technology, man.
It's awesome when it works, and then when you have issues, it seems like it shuts everything down. That's the problem.
It is. It does. I'm telling you. So,
But
man, welcome to.
the alternative is we be having this conversation by candlelight. So I mean, let's just
and that,
hear ye type.
I don't know how good of an alternative that is, man, for real. So, for those who are joining us, man, this is No More Hiding, and this is our Manhood Moment podcast. Of course, you know you can catch us every first and third Thursday of the month, and right here on whatever medium that you're joining us on, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, and it's just us, man. We come in and have conversations about topics that evolve around men and the issues that we may be dealing with. We have guest speakers. I mean, it's endless the things that we do here at No More Hidings. And of course, I'm Dr. Sarah St. Rice, one of the hosts. And so I got my co-host here. And for those who just joining us, fellas, tell them who you are, man.
T. Patrick, go right ahead.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. My name is T. Patrick Ray, one third of the hosts here.
That's it.
I'm from St. Louis. I mean, born and raised, escaped a couple of times, but I always get caught and brought back. So here I am. So it's been interesting, man. Just been doing actually a lot of traveling. So
Okay.
I've got to see some new spaces and faces. Got up to Seattle recently and saw my visited my family while I was up there
Okay.
while working. So kind of enjoying moving about the country.
Okay, cool, cool. And for those who don't know, T. Patrick is our resident HR expert. And so if you got those questions, things like that, feel free to shoot him in. I'm sure he'll give you some sound advice. And the other third of our host team, right?
Yeah, I am Tony Bird. You'll hear the fellas call me T-Bird. Been called T-Bird since I was little. I'm from the Illinois side, the ill side, unlike T. Patrick. I really haven't escaped. My parents are here. They're close by. See them quite a bit. I'm pretty much here until I guess something happens, but I'm pretty much gonna be here. Man, I gotta say, man, I miss you fellas, man. I missed the last. I know it was a woman's takeover, but I missed that podcast. Like it's been a while since I've like had a chance to see y'all faces. We text all the time, send jokes. Say, Dr. Rice sends us TikTok videos. Funny. I haven't joined the TikTok thing yet. I haven't made an account yet. I'm trying to keep my social media down a little bit, but I might have to sign up.
I send the videos, but T. Patrick make them.
Now I haven't made a video in quite some time.
You
You
need
know,
to.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah, you do.
little limited on what I can do. You know,
Why is
Gotcha.
that?
I mean, like Tony Bird said, I got to keep my social media profile down. A lot of people pay good money to see me act a fool on the internet. So you have to be careful.
I mean, it's entertaining. It's just I know sometimes I may grab my phone and scroll, and I look up, man. I've scrolled for like 10, 15 minutes, versus like trying to get some work done. So I've tried to slowly use it less. That's all.
Mhm. No, so, I know oftentimes when people join us, we have guests that join us at the table. And of course, we got to give a shout out to, the other part of our team. We got my wife, Laveda Rice, and we also have our partner, Stephanie Moore, and both of them make up the No More Hiding team. So we're excited about everything that we have going on here. And so normally we have guests on the podcast, and we brought in individuals from all throughout, right, all throughout the country, and we talked about a myriad of conversations, so many different topics. But for this month, we just decided it would just be us, right? Just us, and you get a chance to kind of sit in our conversations, because oftentimes when we're talking, we get into some very deep conversations, and it just happens organically. Now, of course, we're men, so men are very thoughtful. We're not as emotional always about the way we dialogue, but we are very thoughtful and very intentional about our conversation. So, this month, the month of March, it's gonna be just us, and we're gonna invite you to join in. Send us your questions. We'll answer questions as they come across or what have you, and engage in this conversation, because it is a lively conversation. You can also follow us at www.nmh, the number 4, men.org, right? And so we're going to jump into this conversation, fellas, real quick. I got a question. So we've been at this a year, almost a year and a half. So how have you seen yourself develop? How have you seen yourself grow or change since we've been doing this manhood moments and having these conversations, some really in-depth conversations?
I would say just try to do a good job of listening and then being, I guess, basically when it comes to manhood, like understanding what it looks like. That it's that I'm trying to be a comprehensive male. And by that, I look at different topics that we talked about and in the pod and different guests that we had, different shows. For example, looking at mental health. Okay, I need to work on my mental health. I understand that I'm frustrated about certain things. So how do I handle it? Or I'm able to look at what was the root of it. Is it something that's old? Is it something new? Um, and even just I know I'm growing at work because I'm taking more of a leadership role, and I'm
Mhm.
not worried about being the angry black man at all. I am the articulate brother that tries to see things from different sides. Another area I think I've grown with this show and with my youngest daughter is trying to understand the whole non-binary stuff.
Okay.
Um and really try to listen because for me it is, and I'll just bring my job into play. I work in law enforcement, I do supervision, and sometimes people have to do drug tests.
Okay.
Either you sit when you urinate or you stand. That's kind of how my brain works. But
Mhm.
nowadays, it is how do you identify yourself? I'm a wrestling coach as well.
Mhm.
So if I have a what what looks like to me is a male and he identifies as a female, then it is okay. Where does he weigh in at, or where does they? I can. It's one is like I try to be specific with my wording too, because I don't want to say, well, where does it go? It is where do they go. Use their pronoun. So I'm trying
Mhm.
to grow in that area too. I'm kind of throwing a
Okay.
bunch of stuff out, but it's just those type of things where I feel like our show helps us out, and then just with kids that,
Okay.
especially my daughter, like throwing stuff out. Well, Dad, why do boys do this? Why do boys do that? And I think for me, it was always men think about pulling girls. Men think about joning, having fun, but that's not clearly what manhood is. We're way more. We have emotions. We're
Mhm.
sensitive. We're not always tough. So just those things. I would just say, looking at the screen, this is what season 2, episode 9. I've learned so
Mhm.
much just during that time. So just some thoughts that I've had.
That's good.
Hold on, where you see that at, Tony? I don't know what season or episode we're in.
Well, when my phone popped up when Facebook showed
Oh, okay.
it showed. I mean, I
Yeah,
have a bunch.
I'm all on here looking like, wait a minute, hold on. I
Yeah,
got you,
okay.
but no, no, no. I mean, I totally agree. with a lot of what Tony says. I mean, the world is changing. We're changing, and I've got to live life in between episodes. You know what I mean? That's why I
Mm-hmm.
can't keep up with what episode we on, what season we in. But uh, doing this has really provided a platform to kind of talk through some things that life presented that I might not have fully understood or wasn't accustomed to. I mean, like how do we deal with emotions and all of that, you know, from that standpoint, right? It's just like I'm trying to figure out, um, this thing called life, but getting to
Mm-hmm.
share it with brothers and guests and hear different perspectives and kind of work through that. Like I said, it was um, a struggle. I mean, I know I present as a personable person, but sometimes I can be emotionally disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest growth component has been getting in touch with the emotions and knowing what to do with them because I ran away from them for so long. So actually having these conversations sometimes are therapeutic, where I don't necessarily have to speak specifically to what I'm going through, but
Mm-hmm.
we can have a conversation that parallels that experience that I can get some takeaways from.
That I think that's interesting. Both of you all made some very interesting thoughts and reflections about where you were and where you are, and I concur with quite a bit. I think that as we've grown, and I see that question, and we'll get a chance to respond. I think, but no more hiding manhood moments has actually been a part of my growth process, and I think I alluded to this at the last when we were on our last podcast with the womanhood takeover before we were rudely interrupted. I ain't gonna say no names, but it was, but it really is. It's not just so I don't come on here every first and third Thursday for the likes or for the number of individuals who might be on here. That my excitement is because it is literally a part of me, right? And so these conversations, these opportunities to be able to, hash out thoughts or hear different perspectives or learn something new, it does something for me mentally, emotionally. It does something for me, and it actually is like a part of me, right? So I look forward to these conversations, and just how it's going to unfold because they're not scripted. We don't have scripted conversations. It's not off the wall craziness, where we just talking foolishness or whatever. But they're really thought provoking conversation from educated black men who are leaders, who are fathers, who are also community advocates. All these things, so they really have an impact on me. So I could concur with what you're saying. No.
And I
Yeah,
will
I
say
mean,
to the question, just real quick, 'cause I have a thought to the question. The question that popped up was, why are emotions important? They're very important because as a male, you're taught, for example, women are more important than men. When you look at
Mm-hmm.
Father's Day commercials compared to Mother's Day, it's different. So at a certain
Mm-hmm.
point, a man can think my emotions doesn't matter. Who cares? All the tensions are on the woman, and I can just think that I had an issue. I opened up to you guys on a pre-show on that Sunday. Before
Mm-hmm.
our podcast, I would have never let myself shed a tear. I told you guys, hey, something personal happened.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all prayed for me. I allowed myself to cry. I let my emotions out
Mm-hmm.
versus feeling alone. So I think when men don't let their emotions out or talk about it, we do feel
Mm-hmm.
alone, like nobody cares, or we have this, I'll just tough it out. It's almost like you fall down, you walk it off. Emotion wise, you shut down and you walk it off, but you
Mm-hmm.
still
That's
have
true.
the pain that's there. So I think men to, it's for us to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And when we're growing up, being vulnerable comes off as you're weak.
Oh
Kids
yeah.
that were like that, we would during that time, that's a mama's boy. Or why is he crying? You know what I mean? So like we would even
Mhm.
make that kid not want to show his emotions.
That's true.
Well,
So
I don't even know if it's just when we were kids. You run into the right group of people as adults. I mean, you go get the same thing.
for
Like, I
Hmm.
sure.
mean, like I don't know if they're. I think I mean, emotions are important simply because we have them. I mean, they got to go somewhere. They're supposed
Yeah.
to. That's what they're for. I mean, so like we talked about many times before. You know, if we hold it in too much, it's gonna come out. It's either gonna come out, you know what I mean, in the form of physical violence, or it's going to come out in the form of self-destructive behavior, but it's going to come out.
Yeah.
So a healthy release of emotion is there, because that's just part of who we are. We're beings. We feel,
That's
you know
true.
what I mean. We socialize, and we're social. It's kind of, I think, I I'm not an expert here, okay, even though HR is like industrial psychology, but I mean it, to a degree. I mean, it's counterintuitive to be separate from other people. I think we were designed that way. I mean,
Uh-huh.
Rice has talked many times about, you know, or referred to Adam and Eve, and where God said it's not good for man to be alone. So I mean, even in the garden, there was a need for
Yes.
socialization.
Yes.
So, uh, but to Tony's point, I mean, what we've experienced as men has been all of this pushback to keep it in. And
Hmm.
then when you express it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm single. I got to be careful with what woman I express myself to, because the wrong one is going to think that that's weakness.
Yeah.
But that's also, but like I say, through this podcast, having these conversations, I can see that clearly. Because before I used to be like, oh well, I don't want to appear weak. No, I don't care. Look, you don't tell me I'm weak, and I know that's a red flag. So that's cool. I'm gonna take my weak self over here,
Exactly.
and let you be able. Because let something happen to you, you got a person. Well, you just not sensitive, and you just didn't care. So I don't want to fight that battle. But it's like now, hey, my emotions are coming out. So if you can't deal with them, hey, I'm sorry for you.
That's you said something that was really that was critical, right? I'm always reminded I can never get the name of the movie, but it was a cartoon, and so in the cartoon, it was all these emotions that was inside this girl, and when they removed one of the emotions, it actually threw off the balance of that little girl, and so we have these emotions, we have these things that we feel on the inside, and many times we've not been allowed to connect with the various emotions that we deal with as men. We've not been allowed to connect with the hurt. We've not been allowed to connect with the joy. We've not been allowed to connect, right, and genuinely see how those emotions play a part, right? And so when as we're dealing with men, you said something, T. Patrick, that it's gonna come out, and so often when it comes out, all we stereotyped is as angry or whatever the case is, right? Because our
Preach.
emotions don't appear. That I think that's why it's also important for men, in particular black men in the home, when they have sons and they have daughters, to also be able to express their emotion, because it becomes a place where it's common, right? Where they can feel the healthy touch of a man.
Yep.
They can feel the sorrow that a man feels, and being able to break down when we're weak, right? And be able to show that, look, we deal with this as well. We're not Superman as society would desire us to be, nor are we weak. We're human.
Yep.
And I'll say this, all right, as an example, right? So this weekend, last weekend, my oldest son was over, and he's got this new VR thing that he got for Christmas.
Hmm.
Now, you know what I mean? So he wants me to put the Wi-Fi password in. Well, tell him, right? And I can't think of this doggone password. So I'm like, just give me the thing and I'll just try to figure it out. But then I'm like, this is cool. So hold on. Wait a minute. So I ain't really want to give it back, right? I want to put the thing in, but he can't. There's this little password you got to put in before you put the Wi-Fi password in, and he was hesitant to tell me, and I think it was because he really didn't want me to have his he didn't want me to have his toy or whatever, right? But I insisted, no, you gonna walk me through or provide me with instruction on, how to open this thing so I can put the password in. So he can't think of it. He gets frustrated. So I told him, all right, well, go put it up. Now you can't take the time to critically think and give me the direction to connect the dots to open this thing. Then you don't need to play it. So he mad, crying, right?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I come in, I'm like, he's just sitting there, and I'm like, he hiding his face, and I'm asking, what's wrong with you? Well, nothing. And I can see him like this. So then he gets mad and he goes in the room. Well, my kids know my ignore game is like on point. So you throw a temper tantrum, it ain't gonna move me at all. So he went in there, got himself together, but I allowed him to express himself. I did not get on him about, boy, stop crying, this, that, and the other. I mean, I did ask him, what are you crying for?
Yep.
Because you can't play with something, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that's part of it. But I didn't ridicule him. He got to express himself, and I didn't tell him what to do next. He came in a few hours later. Well, not can you put it in? Can I explain this to you? And then he
Mhm.
did. We got it together, and I got to play with the thing. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is a lot. Gave it back to him. But I think those things are important for him to have. The point is for him to have that opportunity to express himself
Yeah.
versus me coming up. Boy,
Yep.
what you in here crying for? You being a little punk. You know what I mean? Something
Uh-huh.
like that. That it doesn't take all that, and I get to now with from this place be able to nurture them, and I know it's okay for you to have
Yeah.
emotions, you to go through those feelings and express yourself because I couldn't always express them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that part where we talked about the convers when early on when we first started the Men and Moments, and we talked about the need for mentoring, right? And having that mentor that can help us learn how to process our feelings, because learning to properly process our feelings actually helps us with our problem solving skills,
Hmm.
right? Because once our mind, and I don't know about you, but once the heart, and that's everybody who listens knows that that's like my alter ego, right? And I'm learning to control.
Oh,
I think I've
smash.
almost found. I think I almost found the cure for him, right? Remember, David Banner was always looking for the cure. I think almost found the cure, but I don't want to get rid of him because he's also a protector. I've come to understand that the hawk is there to protect sometimes, and he needs to come out to let any predator know that this ain't the place for you, right? So, but when many times when we're in that emotional state, when I'm in that hawk state of mind, I'm not thinking clearly. I'm not thinking
For
rationally.
sure.
I'm not thinking where I'm not thinking as a problem solver. I'm only thinking from my emotions. And many times that emotion is based off of fear, anger, hurt, somewhere like that. And it's an or disrespect, which is a big one for men. If we feel disrespected, it's like, oh no, game off, right? Especially if it's somebody that's in our circle that's supposed to really know us. Oh yeah, it's game on. You gonna disrespect me like that? So but having that mentor and T Patrick, you working through and helping your son understand how to process this and giving him a safe space to be able to process his thoughts, his feelings, all his emotions, everything that's coming on, that's gonna play a huge role in his success as he get older.
Sure will. And something I was thinking about, and for people that are checking that's watching it, I'm a middle school wrestling coach. I'm one of the co-coaches, and then just
Mhm.
during the wrestling season, there was a couple of kids. It was their first match, and they were like, "Coach, I'm scared." So I felt good that they were like felt comfortable coming up to me saying that, but then I was helping them work through the emotions as well. That ultimately it's just a match. It's two people. Somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose. But it is to help build the confidence that
Mm.
I'm scared. People in the crowd. So you're helping. work them through that whole process of, putting your headgear on. You're gonna go out there and compete
Yeah.
and just try your best, win or lose. I mean, we still gonna hug them when you come back. So it's just a matter of them overcoming that fear too. So
Mm.
I think that helps as far as building them up and working through emotions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, I think through the hiding is, causes so much emotional damage as we get older. And we wonder why men can't communicate and this, that, and the other. But I mean, part of it is because nobody really wanted to hear. Somebody in our life or some people in our life told us they didn't want to hear what we had to say.
Shut up. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
And at that point, I bet that's how it was. I bet. I bet I won't feel that again. I bet I won't. You know what I mean? Because I can pinpoint back to where I shut down like emotionally in relationships was 17 years old. I
Mhm.
don't want to ever feel like I got played again. So therefore,
Yep.
look,
Yep.
Man,
Yep.
like,
man, talk about it. Talk about it.
I didn't open my heart up to you, and this what you do to it. I
Man, we
bet.
never talked about this before, but that's mine too. Senior year in high school, date this female. No, junior year going into senior, date this female for a whole year, man. And man, she put me through so much. I'm telling you, man. They don't. I don't think they really. I'm doing some research right now about that because I don't think individual or society recognize that men hurt. And when we
Yeah.
get hurt early like that, it's like game off. It's like, oh,
Period.
Yeah.
we
I
good.
mean, like
I
what
think
they say.
every dude I
Period.
know has a story like that. That's when things change. I
Yeah,
was nice, I was this and that, and I got played. Okay, well, I'm gonna be this
right.
other guy over here.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
know what I mean. I learned all these behaviors and these negative, and but again, emotions came out. So now I got feelings for you, but I don't know how to really express them because last time it hurt. You know what I mean? The band-aid got ripped off or duct tape or whatever it was, got just ripped off and it took some skin with it. So it's like, you know what? Yeah, I can only let you go so far.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then say real quick, you talk about research. I wonder how many kids, how many boys were scarred when a mama said, "I'm gonna give you something to cry about." Like, stop crying before I give you something to
Mhm.
cry about. I wonder how many kids are scarred from that. I never heard it. I mean, my parents never said to us, but I've been
Mhm.
places where you hear that person's mother or father say that to them. I really wonder how many kids are in the system or lack emotions on that.
Yeah,
Right.
like what I'm crying about is not enough. So you got to give me something extra.
Right. Or wait a minute. You crying and then they say shut up, right? But then you stop crying. Oh, so you ain't gonna cry? So like what you want me to do? Like, you know what I mean? Right.
Confusion at its best.
Right. Now you want to hit me with broomsticks and stuff like that because you know what I mean? Because the belt stopped working. Well, I mean, you told me not to cry.
Yeah, and you seen the kid too where he's crying loud. They tell him to stop crying. He start whimpering, stop whimpering. I mean, you want him to just shut up? Like, what do you want?
Yeah, and that's so true. When so when we look at that research, I'm going back to that. I'm seeing that quite a few young men, especially when they go away to college, and remember this is college level research, right? And so quite a few young men actually experience that first level of hurt in college, right? And so, and because I believe, and this is my thoughts, and I'm going to stick with it. I believe at the core, men want to be monogamous. They want to be in one relationship, right? And I believe that even if society does not allow us to talk about it, a lot of men think about having that one, right? Because we understand. I think very few men initially start off thinking they just want to be this player. Now, today's society, because of social media and everything else, it makes it look real good. And of course, we know we had the pimps and the pushers and all that other stuff, but even they had that main one because it's about trust, right? And being able to gain and be in that place of trust. So, and we can't trust multiple people. So if we find that one that we can trust, and sometimes, like I'm reminded of the movie like Brown Sugar and things like that, they found that one that they could trust, and they might have kept him in the friend zone because he was afraid of being hurt, but they knew that they could trust that person. So I think that we desire that, But when we go through that hurt, man, it's like, and so many lose their way. They get off course, they get distracted, and I'm talking about young men who are at the college level. They get distracted. They start to feel, because there's no place where they can deposit those feelings. There's no place where they can talk through those feelings. They can't tell their partners, even though we can tell our partners a lot of things. We can't tell our partners that we got played. We can't tell our partners that we really sitting there crying and hurting and listening to those sad love songs, and things like that, right? We're gonna put on something that seems like we tough and all that other stuff.
You know,
And I'm gonna kind of date us for a sec, because I can think of like my little transition in college of having a girlfriend, breaking up, and then being that player. You had like Poe Pimp, uh,
yes,
the
yes.
so you had those
Make that
songs, and then it
reference, sir.
was, huh?
Make that reference, sir.
Let me see. Another song popped in my head, and it came out. But you had, I won't say the H word, H in the club showing
Mhm.
love. Like you had,
Tila. Yeah, that's Tila.
yeah, A Ball and
Show
MJG.
enough,
So
show enough. Yeah,
yeah, so I was listening like all of those songs. So it was like R&B. I'm gonna put you over here. I don't want to hear no sad song. I want to talk
right.
about the club and Poe Pimp and all that. So that was kind of like that college experience for a little bit. And then I would say by the time I graduated, then I was back into the R&B a little bit more. But that was my thing.
So see, Tony, I don't feel like you dated us at all because I feel connected to that because that could be my story right there. Every last one of those songs, Tila and Poe Pimps in my playlist today, right? So you know what I mean? Those were the days. But hey, I see a comment from Latrell Hayes who
Uh-huh.
had joined us last week, and it's I don't dominate. I don't want to be at the mercy of my emotions. I want to use them to enjoy them and to
Dominate
dominate them
them.
so others can't.
Mm.
And I really like that. That's the reason I'm pulling it in because that's the space where I've been
Uh-huh.
is from that where I've learned, right? You know what I mean? Because dating a woman nowadays, you got to be extremely strong. I mean, I'm sure we had to be strong back then. I don't know because I was emotionally detached, but now, you know what I mean. You will hear some stuff when you open up. You know what I mean. And so you've got to be, really prepared for that because I mean, where does a prophet not get the recognition?
In his own
Typically
home.
exactly. So it's like, you know what I mean? The people closest to you just really, really, affect you. And you know what I mean? So going through the journey and talking to individuals and getting close to them, you hear some things. You got to be tough and ready for that. And so I've told my sons that, like, you've got to be, um, prepared for that. You know what I mean? Even the conversation of where do you want to eat, because sometimes they don't know what they want to eat. And you got a whole argument because you try to take them out to eat.
Other thing I say is, that I just say that, look, if I ever want something, then I'm gonna say it. If the day I want chicken, you ask me what I want, I say I want chicken. I don't want to talk about it. That's what I'm expecting us to eat.
I have
We're not gonna really talk. Hey, Mike put an interesting statement in. Thanks for joining us, Mike. And so he says, I think men want to be in one relationship emotionally, but not physically. I think you just take an L on that when you choose to get married. Fidelity is a choice, not a feeling. Man, that was good. You know, when we're talking about emotionally,
if you want Rice, if you want me to take this because I'm single, I'll take it.
but
You go
I
right
don't have a
ahead.
problem. I don't have a problem, but because I rub my house. No, just
Right? Because hey, my couch
Hey,
ain't
I'm
gonna say my couch ain't gonna say nothing to me tonight.
it's but when you talk about emotionally, one relationship emotionally, I think the emotional is more difficult for men than the physical, right? I think we could be physically with multiple individuals, but the emotional side is more challenging because that's the part where we really have to open up. No, so
Yeah.
I think we try to avoid the emotions as much as possible. And I do recognize that marriage requires fidelity, monogamy, all that other stuff, and so, you know, but I don't know. That what you think about the statement, fellas?
I mean, I mean, my, I know Michael. Michael is a straight shooter. So I mean, that part about take that L. That's why I said, hey, let me go to take that, fellas, because I know, you know what I mean. That could be a problem. But I mean, I get what he's saying as far as that you're giving up something. I mean, emotionally, well, I guess maybe it depends on where your background, right? Where you came from. You know what I mean? Whether emotionally connecting with one person or physically to connect with a bunch of people. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like it's easy to do. I think that's what the point was. But like I wouldn't mind being emotionally attached. I just learned not to be because I didn't like the feeling that came from somebody thinking that they were getting the best of me.
Mm,
So, and I use that physically to go and all right, well, fine. I'm gonna be emotionally detached and be with a whole bunch of people physically to prove that I'm a man to some other people, right? And
mhm.
as I've gotten older, you know what I mean, gotten a few kids under my belt, then it's understanding that you know what I mean. Hey, wait a minute, kids are expensive, so you know what I mean. You know, but
No,
so I'll tell anybody that I'm dating, like I can only deal with one of y'all at a time
yeah.
because it's just too much.
See,
Not
I
not
kind of got a
not
different
wrapping
take.
up. Not wrapping up is expensive. That's the expensive part of it. Go
For
ahead,
sure.
T-Bird.
No,
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I'm gonna come back
marrying
to that though.
on the
Okay.
comment because I don't really if you look at take a L from not being able to be physical with somebody else, I don't really take I don't see that as an L per se because when you get married, you should gain way more than that. So it should be
Mhm.
financial, emotional, um, a partnership, help build each other up. So I don't see it as an L unless you're looking at the point of you can only be with one person physically.
I
Yeah,
think that L
I think
comes.
that's what he meant. You know,
Mhm.
from there.
I think that L comes when you, if you real, if I'm gonna be honest, is when we start the relationship off of physicality, right? And so it's not based on. I was
The
listening.
Lil
I'm
Wayne
always
song
listening
about
to
all the
stuff
girls
like
in the
that.
world.
No, I was listening to Lil Wayne and all that other stuff. They can't speak. They can't speak to me.
And Drake,
I'm
I'm
more
just
back.
joking.
I remember y'all. We got a little bit of distance in our age between us, but I'm more Public Enemy and things like that. We weren't talking about we were talking about taking over the world. And so, when I think about it, he mentioned the fact of connecting with individuals for things other than getting to know them. And this was Noel, I think it was. He was talking about when we get into relationships and we're getting in relationship and we connect with them physically before we get to know them. And so then that leads to an L ultimately because we never really get to know the person. We never really get a chance unless you have two mature people. But quite honestly, you set the expectation of that relationship early on. And so if the for instance, like we go to movies a lot, right? In the early part of relationship, but you're really not getting a chance to talk to the person. You're together, but you're not getting a chance to know how this person think. You're not getting a chance to understand their process, things like that. When you're sexually involved with them, you may feel good and it may make us feel like we have a connection, but we're really not. We're not getting a chance to understand this person's perspective and things like that. So that's what brings the L about. Or if we ourselves are emotionally already messed up, emotionally, mentally. We was listening to a training, and the trainer said that which you don't heal spreads. So we get into these spaces and we spread this stuff, and from relationship to relationship because we ourselves are jacked up.
Yeah,
And that's where the L actually begins, if you ask me.
and that's what I was gonna say. Like, how do you open up emotionally when your emotional growth was stunted long before? right? So and you don't even know it. That's the problem. You're not even tracking to the fact of how messed up you are, right? Neither of you are until you come together, and now you're mirroring each other's trauma, and everything puts you on edge, and this, that, and the other. Now, yeah, the physical part was great until I start to get deep with you and start to understand that you know I got mama issues, you got daddy issues, or vice versa. We got both parent issues, and we
Hmm.
don't know how to communicate. We're not we listen to respond versus all of those things. You know what I mean? That causes the conflict, but you don't even know, and that's the craziest part. Like, I was wondering, why do I do some of the things that I do? And like I
Hmm.
said, my relationship with my father was strained, but our lives, other than a few choices, professionally, personally, mirror each other. It's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah. Mike said something, man. We got to go back to it. By the way, that's a nice boxer. So if you ever breed them, you got to let me know, Mike, if you breed boxers. But that's what it looks like, really strong looking. But
You
it
up in
says
Kirksville,
big.
man. You need some cows up there. You don't need no dog.
I, that cane course, I need something big.
Yeah. You hear that
He
bark?
said, being with one person physically, I don't believe that we are wired for monogamy. What's your thoughts, fellas? What do you think about that? You think we're wired for that?
I think we are. And I think, but again, I think it really comes back to your experience and your beliefs because, you
Hmm.
know, God didn't assign multiple women, what I mean, to Adam. I mean, he had the ability to put 12 women there. He
Hmm.
got enough ribs, you know what I mean, where he could have took a few more, but he chose one. And you know what I mean? And I think the idea was that connection. Now I can see how a case could be made for a number of things.
Uh-huh.
Again, based upon what a person believes and what their experiences are.
Hmm.
I would prefer to be with one woman. I mean, if I'm gonna deal with your drama, then I need you to deal with mine,
Hmm.
and we just gonna deal with each other's because. But I know that you gonna go to war for me, and that's what I look for. You gonna have my back in there. So you might be mad. We might not always get along. We ain't supposed to. But I got that connection, somebody I could share things with, because trying to share it with multiple women. I mean, we tried it coming up, going on multiple dates. We ain't had no money for real. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We got to go get extra. We got to work a couple extra hours or some overtime, to take Trina and I can't think of no other names right now.
I
You know
know.
what I mean?
You don't
But
want to
like
mention
I
their names anyway. Come
so right, but to take all of them out, you know what I mean? From that perspective, no. Let me do it with one. So that's my view.
Mm.
Is that the nearly 40-year-old T Patrick talking? Or is that because I feel like what you said, I feel that way now, like
Hmm.
the experience, but back then, no,
I I honestly felt that way then. So I've been on a journey to get back. Yeah, Mike says stop snitching. Right, I'm giving out all the goods. Look, you know what I mean? and I'm the one not married, right? So I'm sitting there telling them, I'm sorry, players that's out there. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, no, that was me. When I was 17, that's what I thought. That's what I knew. No matter what, it just felt right. You know what I mean? I had that other girlfriends I'd always been with, just one female. And then once I got played, I became more susceptible to, one, how do I not have this feeling? And then
yeah.
the discussion started with my
Hmm.
friends and frat brothers, and well, I should right. You know what I mean? And we're all doing it, right? So, there was that. That's what I was seeing. That's
Hmm.
what so I'm like, okay, well, let me adapt, because I didn't like what I experienced the first time. But now I think I've just kind of gravitated back to what I always thought it should be. But again, that's me, and that was my journey. Other people tell you something different.
I was listening to a show the other day, and the guy was talking about their parents did a great job of talking to them about birds and the bees,
Mhm.
but that was it. So, Michael and whoever, do you think your relationships would have been better if your parents talked to you about actual relationships and the emotions and all that? Because I think we all were talked about the birds and bees, boom, prophylactics, all that. But were they talk? Were you fully? Did you have conversations based about around relationships about the
Mhm.
good, the bad? You're gonna deal with this issue, that issue. Did y'all have that too? Because I know the show I was watching, none of them had that conversation. So you think you'd have been better equipped emotionally in the relationship if you had more in depth conversation?
I think so. I think, and then a model, right?
Hmm.
So if I think about the relationship that was in my circle or that I had access to, many of them, I mean, wasn't what I would consider, healthy models for relationships. And I mean, I grew up in church, but even with that, that was almost a feeling of bondage, right? Like once you got married, you was like stuck. So I didn't see individuals that was living their best life and things like that. But and immediately in the house, I didn't see that. So and quite honestly, I had to do a genealogy search when I was getting ready to get married before, and it had us go back and look at like the history and how many generations have been through divorce and things like that. So when you don't get those models and you left to try to figure it out, or what we do is we imagine the opposite of what we see before us, and we go in and try to manifest those things, right? And we try to make them. So those are the things we talk about. Those are the things that we try to avoid with everything in us. But I've learned that the impact of nature and nurture is really true. So even though you may grow up in a home that is full of violence or full of anger, and no matter how much you try to avoid that, there's a seed, that there's a remnant of that's there. And put in the right situation, that's going to be your response because that's what you've seen. And it don't have to completely control. You don't have to completely, but you really have to work through those
Yeah.
things, the things that you see and you don't see.
Yeah, that's so true because like there was a period I couldn't deal with volatility. And I don't like drama, to this day because I've dealt with it and been around and experienced it enough growing up. So therefore I don't like it. I don't want it in my life. So my children have never seen drama from a relationship, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
from that perspective. And I protect them from that, but I also protect myself from that because, to Dr. Rice's point, you know, I might be predisposed to certain things, and if I'm in that right circumstance, you know what I mean? It's a little hard to rationalize sometimes when that's what you're used to. And I had to come to terms with the fact that okay, that's the case. And I've had to actually, say, hey, you know what I mean? I'm predisposed to that. So this volatility is something that I cannot necessarily process from mentally, emotionally. It's hard for
Mhm.
me to process that. So like like me dating somebody that had experienced a lot of trauma, and they're exhibiting these behaviors, it's frustrating to me.
Mhm.
So you know what I mean, and so it's like okay, I don't know how to deal with that. So I might withdraw, I might shut down a little bit, um and ultimately be like, all right, I gotta let this go because like I say, it's reminiscent and I know where it can go, and I'm like, I don't want it to go there.
Yeah, and I was
Mhm.
saying, man, I kind of got the opposite viewpoint growing up. My parents were married. They've been married for it'll be 52 years this year. And for me, it was when I got married and was having like growing pains. I would think like marriage shouldn't be this hard because they made it look so easy.
Mhm.
So I didn't get a conversation on how tough it could be, how you work through things. It was clearly the birds and bees talk. Okay, you're gonna get married, um, but it wasn't that deep conversation though. So even though my
Mhm.
parents, I feel like soulmates, best friends, and all that, I still didn't get that. You're going to have some issues here. You're going to have some issues there. You have to work through differences in parenting or differences in finances. We didn't have that
Mhm.
conversation. So,
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I'm trying to have all of those conversations with my children and let them know, like I told my daughter, I said, you want a car, so she wants a car, and I'm like, we at the gas station, and I said, the fastest way for you to lose your car is to let what for me to hear about. Because she live in Kentucky, so if I even hear about the fact that you pumping gas while these nappy head little boys sitting in the car,
Mhm.
I'm coming to get it. And I mean that. And she's like, "Well, where did that come from?" And then we get into this. Well, Daddy, I'm perfectly capable of pumping my gas. So that ain't the point. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like I say,
yeah,
but having those realistic conversations, like I mean, that frustrates me. I
Mhm.
can't sit in the car with a woman and then let her pump the gas unless she just absolutely insists. And I'm like, all right. And maybe that's what the dudes, do. Maybe that conversation happens. But I don't know. It's just something seeing them texting and the girl get out the car and start pumping and pay. You
But
know
yeah.
what I mean?
No,
but you want to know something? One of the things I found out is if you don't grow up with certain things, you don't know how to do it, right?
Mm,
So for instance, when a man gets a house, for the first time, and he didn't grow up in a house, he grew up in apartments and things like that. He don't know that you need to change the filter in the furnace. He don't know you need to winterize or weatherize your air conditioner outside. He don't know any of those things, cutting grass and things like that. We make the assumption that these things are just common knowledge, but they really aren't. We're taught everything. So if a young man doesn't know that you get out the car and you actually pump the gas, if he's used to just sitting in the car or maybe didn't even grow up with a car and he don't recognize that that's the appropriate thing to do, then he really is a product of the socialization that he exists in.
mm.
You
yeah,
know, Mike said, I studied psychology, read, went to church, and listened to healthy black men who I respected. The issue was never knowing what was healthy. The issue was reconciling wisdom with how I felt. Welcome, reconciling wisdom with how I felt. So is wisdom about feeling or is it about knowing?
Well,
Because when I think about that reconciling wisdom with how I felt, right? Many times my feelings are going to go counter to what I know to be true
yeah.
because I
Well,
don't want to do what I know to be true. So, but and all this wisdom, and that wisdom come across as correction, it comes
mm,
across as direction, it comes across as admonishing, but my feelings don't want to follow that. My feelings is saying that's not the case, and I don't want to do that. So there is an internal battle that goes on.
dude, I still have that. Where you do what you feel versus what you should do or what the right thing in that situation is to do. So,
Mhm.
well,
and I do
yeah,
think that comes with wisdom because to me, I have more restraint now, but back then, I'm gonna do what I feel, say
yeah.
what I feel.
I think we know how I feel. Y'all remember back in it was like February of last year.
Mhm.
I had I said something about uh I can't, it has something to do with feeling the conflict between what you feel and what you know to be true. And I was like, something is I could emotions or something is a formidable opponent to wisdom or whatever. However I worded it sounded profound at the time. So
Mhm.
but that's
And it
exactly what
probably
I was.
was. It was probably profound.
Right, you know what I mean? Because I'm a philosopher.
That's it.
Yes, yes,
But you know what I mean? Like, but that was it. It was like I was going through something, and at that point, it's like I knew what I needed to do, but it
Mhm.
sure wasn't what I wanted to do.
That's
And I
it.
still did what I wanted to do. So
Yeah. Brother Tommy says, he said, wisdom, I think, is how you use the knowledge that you have. And that knowledge comes in the form of experience. And it don't have to be just our experience. It could be experience of others if we're willing to listen. Listen,
mm,
my grandmother used to say, put it on the shelf, right? In other words, you don't have the capacity to understand what I'm telling you right now because you've not lived enough life. But if you put
Yes.
it on the shelf,
Ooh.
eventually you can go to that book and grab it off the shelf and be able to read it. But if you just toss it away, then that's the thing that you probably gonna need to get you through whatever, and you won't have it. So that wisdom is through that. We can either have bought or borrowed experience. At this stage in life, I much rather borrow somebody else's than to
Yeah.
buy my own sometimes.
Hey, it just say grandma's words. I'm gonna borrow that one. Yeah, put it on the shelf because I be trying to say that so much to people that I'm working with or mentoring or whatever, and I'm just like, you know, you haven't lived enough to really understand what I'm or appreciate what I'm saying to you, but you will. And I say, and I would phrase it like, um, you know, listen, one of us is wrong. One is right. I guess time is gonna tell us which one is which.
That's
And
it.
so I'm like, I'm with grandma on that. Put it on the shelf, but I'm gonna say it that way next time. Put that on the shelf.
Baby, put it on the
Hey,
I like that.
I think that's, and for those, that's why I don't argue about salvation and religiosity and things like that. Because the Lord revealed to me years ago, He said, "Look, life is like a classroom, right? But there's only one teacher, and there's only one right answer. And at the end of when we take our test, at the end we're gonna get the answer. And so the goal is to listen to the teacher and not listen to the other pupils in the room, because the other pupils will have you arguing among yourself. No, that's the right answer. No, I'm gonna listen to the teacher. I'm gonna go and trust the teacher on this answer, because at the end of the day, that's who got the answer anyway. Latrell says, he says, feeling over time can give you wisdom, but the pain of the issue teaches you. Yes, yes. It can. That I think the feeling comes with in relationship to the pain. So and what we're experiencing, and whether it's pleasure or pain, it brings about that wisdom. Hey, that was a question earlier. I want to go back to it. I don't know if we addressed it. So if you don't have those role models, how do you know what a healthy relationship was? I'll throw out there, for me, it's experience now, right? And so because I've been in several unhealthy relationships at no fault of anyone else. I'm learning to recognize it. It was me actually going into it, because relationships is a product of two individuals, sometimes two or more. Sometimes you got some invisible people that you don't see that exist there, which was also in my case some invisible individuals. So, and going through unhealthy relationships and kind of sorting through, and then being forced to go back and look at, okay, what does a healthy relationship entails, and what is my responsibility for a healthy relationship? Because so many times we frame healthy relationships based off of the conditions of others. So if conditionally, if I'm in this relationship, I'm expecting her to do this, and then I'll do this, right? Or if I do this, then she'll respond in kind. But when we talk about healthy relationship, it really is about self and recognizing, making sure that we are in a healthy space. This is my opinion, you all. So you can share your thoughts,
Yeah.
but making sure that we're in a healthy space so we can recognize what healthy looks like, as well as recognize what unhealthy looks like. And so through that process of just understanding those things, that's what now I recognize what's healthy for me. I'll say that.
Yeah, I have to concur because I think even having healthy role models, you still have to go through the journey. So, what is healthy for you? What may be healthy for what may look healthy, say, for example, my parents, may not be for us. And if you
Mhm.
understand like the love languages, you understand that what makes their relationship healthy and stable may be different from ours. That my
Mhm.
dad may do certain things, but if I did it, I'm not meeting that love language. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
so I think it's just every relationship's different. Every person's different. Their needs are all different. So I think it's
Yeah.
tough when you don't really have a role model, somebody to talk to. Hopefully, at some
Mhm.
point in time, you'll meet a mentor or something like that you can look and say, "Hey, how you stay married for this long?"
Yeah.
But
or you're in a relationship with someone else. T. Patrick, I know you've been ready to respond, but but being in a relationship with somebody else who also desires to be in a healthy relationship, and not wanting to shut down, not allowing you to shut down when you want to, and you vice versa, not allowing them to shut down, but you both striving to be in a healthy relationship. And sometimes you may not have outside or external mentors, but sometimes within that relationship itself, you're holding one another accountable in a healthy way to continue to build the relationship, the love, the trust, the communication, things like that, because it becomes valuable to both of us.
I was I like I guess I'll use kind of I liken this to how I learn. Okay,
Hmm.
from that. I mean, and I look at it this way. I mean, a role model can give you the answers, but it's like me getting the answers to the math test. Okay,
Hmm.
if I don't understand the why behind what we just did, the answer mean absolutely nothing to me. So
Hmm.
I was, I think that, with having a role model, you also have to develop wisdom, and
Hmm.
so and the wisdom to understand that what works. Well, you may have the answer in front of you, but you still got to do the work to get to that answer.
Yes, walk
And
it through.
I think
Hmm.
that's the point that that missing piece, because I saw good marriages, or at least what I thought were good marriages, and I took
Hmm.
bits and pieces from there and tried to put it together when I was married to put together a whole thing. But when the problems came up, I didn't know how to solve them because I didn't
Hmm.
do the work and didn't understand. So I had to answer, well, you're always supposed to talk. So I'm insisting that we talk, but what do we talk about? Right? So we just
Yeah.
saying words to each other, but we're not really solving the problem. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. It's like, I don't I think, you can have good role models that'll give you the answers. But again, there's still work to be done, and you got to understand the pits and peaks and valleys, right? I mean, it's just
Yeah.
kind of like I think T-Bird said earlier, you know, parents married for 50 plus years coming up, right? But the thing was, what worked for them, there were some things he didn't see that behind the
Hmm.
scenes that, when you try to apply, it's like, well, wait a minute, this didn't work. So it's like, is this what? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how I
Yeah.
see it. Like I say, put me in a math class and give me the answers. And that's what it's like to have a role model without doing the work.
Yeah, I think what's funny just to just bring it all together, how we're talking about like different relationships and things like that. There was a comment about Michael said in the early '90s in college, it was about Mackin, not emotions. That was the hip hop culture I grew up in. So when you have that first getting played, then all the music you hear, it's all about Mackin, Outcast. I thought school was about Mackin hoes and pimp fade. So all the songs are saying those things, and it's just, and then your boys are are jamming to that. So it just all builds. So even though you know what a healthy relationship should look like, or you envision that one heartbreak, or you feel like you're getting played, you just totally change.
Hmm. Mike talks about, he says there's a tension when the black man in your family in your life that you love are cheaters, uncles, family elders. It hurts and confuses you as a child. That's true. No, that's very true. When there's unfaithfulness, because when I see cheating, I see really what it is dishonesty, right? It's the dishonesty that exists in their relationship. So the things that we promise, the things that we say, aren't backed up through our actions. And the action appears to be unfaithfulness or cheating, but at the core of it is just it's dishonesty. It's a form of lying, whether it's physical or whatever the case is. Now, and when we do, and what it does is, to me, Mike, is it erodes the trust, right? And so once that trust is eroded, it makes me think, okay, is there ever a place of faithfulness? So it questions and even for me, it made me question my ability to be faithful. So for a while, I wondered if I could, or if I was just had this predisposed. T. Patrick said it, predisposed, um, uh, just gene to just be unfaithful, right? Because you look and you say, man, such and such did it, such and such did it, such and such did it, such and such did it. Can I overcome this? So.
God has blessed me with a gift that, boy, sometimes I struggle, but it's the need to understand people, and really get to the root of why. And
Hmm.
this preoccupies my mind a lot when I deal with people, and it helps me be more understanding, which is something I guess that I desire. So therefore, I've taken that on,
Hmm.
and so um, I want to know why. So I like w- other people's behavior didn't necessarily affect me in that way,
Hmm.
because I guess even though I didn't know that I had this need to understand, I rationalized the fact that that's who that person is, and there's something that causes them to do that. So it never really caused me to say, "Oh, well, I saw this." That being in a violent atmosphere was completely different. So you know what I
Hmm.
mean. Maybe it did, and I developed subconsciously a predisposition for that. But but I don't think infidelity or cheating was ever something that I really focused on. Right? Like it was like I made a conscientious decision in my marriage that hey,
Hmm.
I got socially awkward during my marriage because I wouldn't even say hi to females because I knew how I was. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what I mean? They got to speak to me first. You know what I mean? And they get on the elevator, hi, and then I shut up because I start a conversation. I know what they need to another. I'm flirting. I just do that naturally.
Naturally, yeah.
Right. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna say hi and then I'm gonna keep it moving. But that was that because I guess I knew I could or would. So, but like I said, I just understood and never had the inkling to do it simply because I knew people or knew of or saw it, in my immediate, presence.
Mhm.
It's funny, like just how varied we are because when I was trying to be a player back then, I knew better. So for me, it was a choice. It wasn't necessarily like, well, I didn't know, I don't have any role models, or my boys are doing this and that. No, at a certain point, I knew I was tripping. You know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
doing way too much. So it's just funny how we all differ
Hmm.
on that.
I'm trying to understand. Mike Scurchy says, is the length of time married or how many of those years are happy? Real question, not rhetorical. Mike, clarify that for me. I want to respond, but maybe I missed the connection, what I was saying, and this is what spurred that question on. So clarify that question for me. Take me back to what you were referring to, and I want to respond to that question.
So I
I
look
like
at
that. I saw something said exactly, T. Patrick. I like that one. Great comment. Great comment there.
is this something where like, okay, if somebody's married for 20 years,
Mhm.
are they looking at 10 were good? Just based on just kind of what he said, is it the length of marriage or the time happy? Hopefully Mike will respond, but I'm just kind of
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sure he'll respond and clarify then. That way we can. Okay, he says here, does it matter to be married 50 years or only 10 years of them are happy? If only, oh, okay, all right. So, yeah, so now that's a good question. Woo. And so when we're talking about, in my opinion, and these the comments shared or expressed solely on the beliefs of Saint Rice, and so
the disclaimer.
but I believe that time does not bring us together. Time is just time, right? And I believe that so often we will stay together, relationships will stay together for the sake of time and being able to say that I've been together 40 years or whatever the case is, but really have not been happy in that space, right? And when they're not happy in that space, if I'm getting this question right, if a person's not happy in that space, then it does lead to some they have to work even harder to remain faithful, right? Because there's nothing that brings them home other than just it's the fact that they're home, right? And I think you said it
That's
is
even if they
stay
are
out,
home.
stay out of habit. Do people stay out of habit or routine? And so many times, what you see is when it's if they have kids, once the kids are raised and it's just them, they break up,
Yeah.
like, or they living in separate spaces, and even
Basement
that,
or
even
upstairs.
the kids can recognize that there's some unhappiness there. They think that they think that it's showtime, right? And I'm gonna pass this to you all. They think it's showtime because they're in front of everybody, and it seems like they're putting this air on, like everything is good, but really on the inside, they just ate up. You know.
Well, I'm gonna
Yeah, they're
be.
their roommates, ultimately.
Yeah, I told y'all, if I get married again, or when I get married, if it don't work, we roommates, and that's just all it is to it. Because I mean, it's expensive. No, but seriously though, I think part of it is really. I mean,
What you
I'm
say?
saying.
That do you put roommates and all, right?
You hear me? Because I will not pay that cost again. Like, I already that money spent is gone. But I'm just saying, like, I think the thing is, if I'd had a different mindset going into marriage, which I have now, which you know what I mean. I joke all the time, but that's something I take very serious, which is why I'm not married. It's not that I don't have the opportunity. It's just that I'm not going to take that step. When I took that step last time, I was doing what I thought marriage should be instead of understanding what it is and then get dealing with myself to be healthy
Hmm.
and come from a healthy space to deal with a woman because we all gonna have triggers, but if
Hmm.
your triggers are triggering me, there's no way we're gonna be happy. And it's not her job to make me happy, not mine to make her happy. And we gotta be in that emotional space to understand that, in order for that to happen. You know what I mean? And I recognize that. But I think part of the point of happiness versus the longevity piece for me through my lessons, and this is my point of view. Um, it's just that, I couldn't stay for the sake of being happy, just for the sake of the kids, because so everybody's point, they know you ain't
Hmm.
Yep.
happy. They know you ain't. Eh, you ain't even putting on a show for them. They feel it, and it's
Yep.
like in order for them, they didn't choose that. That's something we chose because we didn't know better, and so we can do better. And we're starting to, be cool again. My son has even made comments about how well we work together in co-parenting. You know what I
Hmm.
mean from that. So he's noticing that, and that's
That's
Yep.
positive because he feels like he has two parents that he can depend on
yeah.
versus being in a house where he feels like he has to walk on eggshells.
Yeah. And Tommy, we see your comment. I've been married 15 years. It wasn't all pretty ups and down roller coaster, but I thank God for every moment because it's also a learning experience. And that's true. When you
Yep.
can come to, because I was told that life is, it's like a life support machine, right? If it's just straight across, then that's flat line. But it is
Hmm.
going to be full of ups and downs because you're actually doing life, you're living together. But when you're learning, right? And we're taking our time to learn from those experiences, whether it's with one another, whether it's from our previous lives or things like that. And trust us, we're not giving relationship advice here because, quite honestly, all the energy I have is to make it between, is to continue to do everything I can in my power to make the marriage that God has given me with Levada to work out. Right. So this is not relationship advice. This is conversation, which is what we do. We have good conversation from different perspectives, and so having that learning experience is critical. It's a Facebook user that says it raises the question, which one weighs the most, the quality of the love in the marriage or the quantity of the years in the marriage? That's a good question.
I think
I don't
it's
think the quantity matters. I think it's
yeah.
the quality.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's really I think the answer to that question, honestly, should be quality. I mean, hands down. But I think the 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 true answer to that question is going to be the reason you got married in the first place. Did you know that person? Were you willing to do all the things you said you were going to do, for better, for worse, for sickness and poor? Yeah, are you gonna understand this person at their best and at their worst times in their lives? You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like some of us, I know me. I ain't gonna say some of us. I wasn't operating in my true self. So I
Mm-hmm.
was I was I my ex-wife married she married my representative, and I married hers. And
Mm-hmm.
then when we got to know each other, we recognized we really don't work together, right? I mean, we can do the business stuff, we can do all of that, but we didn't work, and we
Yeah.
didn't get to know each other. We were 7 years in before we recognized we ain't know each other at all. Never took the time, and so it became a question of quality versus quantity, and I just wasn't about to put my children through having to deal with the repercussions of our decision. I think that it really is thinking ahead, I guess. Maybe I'm justifying it, I don't know. That's my feeling, is that it's like, okay, I'm gonna take this step, and I'm gonna pay the cost for the decisions I made, in order for them to have a better life with parents that have a better relationship.
Because to me, you're going to have ups and downs in a relationship, as Tommy
Mm-hmm.
said it. So I'd
Yeah.
rather be married for 15 years and I had that high peak and high valley, not that even kill, but just in between, and have quality to it versus being okay. We were married for 25 years, so it may sound good, but how many of those years were good
Mm-hmm.
or effective? You know what I mean? Like that you're a good a partner. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's the quality over the number of years. Because the
Yeah.
guy said you can be married for 50 years and 10
Mm-hmm.
were good, but it depends on when the 10 years were. Were the last 10? Because I mean, you've
Mm-hmm.
actually gotten better,
Right.
or maybe you've gotten older and now you depend on each other. Or if it was the first 10 years, then y'all just roommates.
Yeah. One of the things, and I really like that comment that Tommy made because he talks about it being a learning experience. And really, life is about learning. And it's a great thing when you can go through life and learn from one another, right? And that is critical. So that's a really good comment that he made there. We had a question that was asked: can you all share your perspective of happiness not being the responsibility of your spouse? And I'll start. I don't now that I've matured and understand. Um, I've always had the idea that none of us can truly love unconditionally, right? And that's simply because from the womb we have conditions. If you think about that baby needs that mother, right, to meet those needs, but that mother also needs that baby to meet her needs of belonging. Because if that baby cries every time the mom picks her up, but that child rests securely in somebody else's arms and sleeps and things like that, that's going to touch her insecurity, that mother's insecurities. So I don't think that we have the capability to love unconditionally. I think over a period of time we get to a point where our conditions are fewer and fewer, but we still have some conditions. And you can see that when relationships start to change, and say somebody decides that they want to better themselves, go to school or whatever, they've been a housewife or they've been doing something else, all of a sudden they want to change. That changes the contract, that changes the conditions of the relationship, and there's a struggle. But I don't believe that it is, as I've grown, I don't believe that it's my wife's responsibility to make me happy, because there are actually some issues or some things that only God can really complete in my life, right? And there are some things where he has to work through. He has to work on me because I thought that that's what happiness was, and so I was forcing it. I was, you need to do this because that make me happy. You need to do this that make me happy. She's gonna be jumping hurdles and trying to figure out things forever. We have to genuinely start to find out what happiness feels to us,
Yeah.
in my opinion, and find that absent of somebody else so we can communicate that without requiring them to do it. So, fellas, what's your thoughts? Now, share my thought.
Similar, but I'm a little different. I
Okay.
definitely love my kids unconditionally. I think when it comes to a spouse, I would say there are conditions. Maybe even with friends, but my kids, I love them unconditionally. I mean, I'm just being honest. One of my kids would have to like shoot my parents and kill my parents for me to be like to really look at them, and that's like the most extreme. But to me, as far as condition, oh, for sure, it's condition in the marriage. I mean, it is what it is. But I don't. My happiness is my happiness. I did learn that, and there's sometimes where I feel like I need to be selfish with that because I'm a better person. Y'all know I like to work out, so I need to hit the gym to get my time. Jujitsu, something where I have my time to do something that I like versus being on somebody else's schedule all the time. So I think we're responsible for our own happiness. You can't say I want to be happy in this relationship. You need to be happy in a relationship on your own. You need to wake up and be happy. You need to go to bed happy because you can't put it. That to me, that's giving somebody too much power. That it's not my responsibility to make her happy. It should be able to do the things that to meet the needs and vice versa. But as far as the happiness, I think that's on the person. If you're doing things you need to do, you're going to make that person happy. They're going to smile, but the happiness is on the individual.
I I don't disagree, fellas. I think it is happiness is definitely an interpersonal experience. Well, no, I think it's a personal experience. Actually,
Mhm.
I think it is um, up to the person to recognize from um, their emotional space what makes them happy, and to do that. And I think that adding a spouse or a partner should complement that. That allows them to have the ability to create happiness in your life. But what I mean, I think from a responsibility standpoint, yeah, that's definitely up to the individual.
Yeah. Tommy said here, he says every relationship is different, but like God let me know when my wife and I fell out to love her regardless, even though I was mad at her. The Lord let me know that He forgave me, and I had to do the same, right? And if we think about it, if we think about it from that lens, that's unconditional, but it's not directly to that person. It's actually so we're loving someone unconditionally based off of the unconditional love God gave us. So they're benefiting off of the unconditional love that God gave us and our own abilities and powers. We really can't unless God gives us the grace to forgive somebody, unless He gives us the grace to truly understand somebody and to really look past what they've done to us. In our nature is to remember. Our nature is to gain vengeance, is to get back, right? But God changes our nature, and when He changes our nature and He gives us more His nature than our own nature, which our nature is selfish, right? And so, and He starts to remove the selfishness and causes us to look to the needs. And I think Tony said the meeting the needs of others. And even when we're meeting needs, this is my opinion, when we're meeting needs, don't mean that we're making the person happy, right? Because needs is just sometimes a list of things that a person may want or whatever the case is. But that don't mean that the person is happy. No, we're meeting the needs of the house. We're paying the bills, things like that. But how many times have you seen situations where people are meeting all their needs, sexually or otherwise, and that person's still unhappy and the relationship still falters?
Yeah, I
Right.
almost look at the happiness question as far as if somebody does me wrong. Say saying you do me wrong and you apologize, yo T, I'm my bad. Then it's on me. Once you've done your job, it's on me to get over it. So that's kind of how I see it. If somebody can do something, if I forgive them, it's my emotion to get past it. And vice versa. If I wrong saying, I'm like, man, I sincerely apologize. I've done my part. saying you can hold on to the anger. That's on you. You can either forgive me, be happy, whatever, but the emotion, then it's on you now. And that's kind of how I view like the happiness part. That
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the hardest things is again understanding that okay, I've done what was required of me in the situation and understanding, I guess. And I get that. And sometimes I overstand, I suppose, that you know what I mean, what okay, this person's having a difficult time accepting that because there was some past trauma, which I
Hmm.
think that understanding is important. You know what I mean from that perspective, and and I feel like if I had a lot more understanding operating where I was, I would have had a better grasp on relationships at that time. But like, you know what I mean, I didn't.
Yeah.
And part of it was though I still understood that this is that, but at the same time, it's like, how do I deal with that if you're not? And part of it is let understanding that that's the person's responsibility to do that. You got to make yourself happy. And if I can do things. I mean, yeah, it's gonna make you happy if now come on guys, y'all gotta do the romantic stuff though. You know what I mean? You gotta listen.
Of course.
I like flowers. You gotta buy the flowers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Which is the ability to create some level of happiness, but I don't think that you can make a person happy because to the trail's point, sometimes we don't even know what makes us happy at times.
Exactly. Exactly. And it goes from from place to place when we're talking about this idea of happiness. I believe that now I'm gonna shift this a little bit. I'm gonna shift it from
hey, let
happiness
me
to
just say
peace.
this real quick though. It's
Uh-huh.
funny. I hate to cut you off real quick. I feel that way, Latrell, because I really don't know my love language. Like it's one of those
Mm.
people have like certain ones. I can't come out one and say this is the one. I need gifts. I need I just want to throw that out there like that I don't feel alone on that. It's like, man, what is mine? Because sometimes I don't know.
What that's one of our man cave sessions. We're gonna help you work through that. You know, I
I
do
guess
think
just
that
respect, man.
Yeah, Rice got the secret sauce. He knows.
man, I got you see all these books back here. I'm just trying to learn, right? And trying to learn from me now. It's like, okay, so hey, one of the things that I think it's important that we create peace though for one another. I don't believe that we should bring chaos into each other's life. Right. And to me, peace is different from happiness. Right. And so and that's to me, that's critical. We want to have a peaceful dwelling. We want to have a peaceful relationship with one another where we can work toward that understanding that Brother Tommy was talking about. So because that's critical, you know. Yeah, when I turned 21, I thought I was a man, didn't realize what it took to be a man until later in life. And I figured out that, quite honestly, that 21 is a legal age that was set in place so they could determine whether or not we can go to war because they needed some bodies. But quite honestly, manhood don't really start until like after 25, 26. And we start to deal with our mind mentally. If we go back and we track, you know, we still would deal with a lot of immaturity as men if we're willing to be honest about it, right? And then the trail said, "My love language is which side of the bed I wake up." Whatever, and then we got voices from the peanut gallery talking about 40 for men. That's because it's not until 40 when we decide that we're gonna take our power back and not let y'all control us no more. So anyway,
Preach, preach. We shall not be moved. What is this? What's
I
that?
know.
What's the Denzel Washington move?
And so, man, this I knew this was gonna look, and we didn't woke up the peanut gallery. They joining all into the conversation. So yeah, at 40, we decided, look, we have a voice, and we sick and tired of just being quiet. So we're gonna share our thoughts. So hey, this has been a really good conversation with manhood moments, man. And so I don't know what you got. Just wrap it up and get ready to call this one a done deal. T. Patrick, what's your final thoughts, man?
Well, you know me. I gotta find a music reference. I know that Michael's a hip hop head. You know what I mean? So he might appreciate it. And Tony's been throwing out some songs that make me reminisce. But I mean, but I'll end with this. Like Chris Rock, said in one of his sets that relationships are only difficult when one person don't want to be in it. Two people can move a couch easy, but try to do it by yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so I think if I was going to say that somebody should take anything from that I say, be careful with the relationship advice. These are tested. Try my experiences are tested and tried through me, right? And so unless you
Exactly.
want to go through what I went through, then you probably better find your own path. Pull this off the shelf when you lived a little bit and then unpack it a little bit from there. But I think that you know what I mean. Like I say, to close it out, I guess you know, I can't even think of a song reference at this particular point. But the thing is, I think it's really important to understand the person that you're partnering with, and know that it's gonna be some really tough days. It's gonna be some really good days, but you know what I mean. If you gonna weather the storm, make sure it's with somebody you want to weather the storm with,
Yes.
and that you know who that you're dealing with, because you're gonna have to stand that rain, like New Edition said. You know what I mean, from time to time, and it's very difficult if you're not. If it's not rooted in love, finally I'll say reference to TikTok because we started with that I saw a TikTok. So sometimes they can be educational, right? That a guy was breaking it down to his sons, and he said, if your wife is a B word, you know, then and she was a B word before you married her, you know what I mean? What you complaining for? You know what I mean? You knew that going into the situation. And sometimes I think we don't know and we don't pay attention to what we need to, and we end up in situations that it becomes difficult, and then we're passing the time because it's cheaper to keep her, or we got the kids, whatever it is, from
Yeah.
that perspective. So take the time, get to know people, and do it that way.
That's it. Good job. Good job. T Bird, talk to us. Give us final thoughts.
Final thoughts is my son's walking by again. Happy birthday, little guy. So my little guy
Happy
birthday is
birthday,
today.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Uh,
AJ.
and then I would say I think uh, just talking about relationships. I think God was like, I got you, man. You wanted to be a player back in your college years. I'm gonna give you not one, not two, but three daughters to deal with. So some of that is really helping me try to become that comprehensive man, because it's that question that you can throw it to any man. Would you want your daughter to marry somebody that's like you? And if you're not on doing what you need to do, it's gonna sting. If you handle your business, you're like, okay. But I think, yeah, we need to do that for our sons as well too. Are you type of person that your son will marry? Um, I would say, man, it's just been a fantastic conversation. I love, talking to you guys. I really don't have like a closing thought for the most part, but I know that it's the Women's Month this month. So I want to give a shout out to my mother for being a strong woman. And her birthday is also It's in March. It's March 29th. She's always held it down. I'll throw my aunts out there too. They were like second mothers to me, and they held it down for the family as well. So that's my final thought.
Man, I love that thought that Tommy put out there. So I like when you said stand in the rain, but we can't get mad if she's not wet. We are the covering for our wives. That's powerful. Very powerful. Man, you know, this has been a really good conversation. And I just enjoy just when you all got a chance to kind of sit in and listen to us when we're talking and we're just having those one-on-one conversation. And as we start to move past this COVID period, we're gonna start back our face-to-face meetings, right, with men, and we start back with our virtual meetings first Sunday of the month. Just hang out on virtually or face to face. But this has been a good conversation. And if I had a song to sing, or if I had a song to say, Gladys Knight wrote a song that said "A Need to Be," and that's the song that has carried me ever since I heard it when I was younger. Because we all have this desire, this need to be seen, this need to be understood, and that need to be. And she said one of the verses said, I cannot survive in someone's shadow. I need my very own spot to stand. And so when I think about living life, and I don't want anybody in my shadow, but at the same time I don't want to be in the shadow of someone else. It's about us standing side by side and letting the reflection of the sun, I'm talking about the SON, the sun, to shine on us so we could be the best that we can be, right? And as he shines on us individually, then he shines on us collectively. And so it's very critical that we understand that, and that we get together and we start to work on this thing. It's not taboo to talk about relationships. It's not taboo to talk about fears or pain and things like that. And when we open those conversations up in our community, then we can start to really grow. We can start to heal. We can start to move past some of the damage that's been done through slavery, that's been done through humanity, and our selfish nature. So, really good conversation today. Thank you for joining. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Please share it, right? If you're on social media, if you're on YouTube, send it out to somebody. Send the link out to somebody. Let them know every first and third Thursday we're here at 7 o'clock, Manhood Moments. It'll be the three of us this month, and then next month we're gonna come back with a conversation with our law enforcement leaders every Monday at 8 o'clock. My wife and I, we have imperfect interchanges. Same, you'll see us on the same station, and we get a chance to really just delve in, she and I, and look at different topics, things like that. And so we're just out here just sharing the word, sharing a good, something that can uplift our community, right? So real quick, Lord, we thank and praise you for this day. We thank and praise you for your grace and mercy. We ask that you would touch and continue to touch those who are listening in, those who are listening while we're airing, and those who come in on the rebroadcast. We ask that if there are men that's dealing with hurt, that's dealing with pain, if there are women who are dealing with the same thing, Lord, we ask that you would touch and heal. We ask that you would bless, Lord God, like only you can bless. Continue to have your way in our community. Protect us. Remember Ukraine and the things that's going on there. And we thank you for everything that you're doing, everything that you're going to do. This we ask in your holy name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We see
Amen.
you in 2 weeks.